This week marks a significant moment in Australia's climate strategy, with the Albanese government poised to unveil its emissions target for 2035. The anticipatory buzz surrounding this announcement highlights a key turning point that could have profound implications for the nation over the coming decade. Understanding climate risks. The first major release, expected on Monday, will be the National Climate Risk Assessment. This eagerly awaited report offers an in-depth examination of the economic and environmental threats posed by the climate crisis. For those within the field, the report is characterized by sources as both intense and scary, even potentially unsettling for climate professionals themselves. It's noted that the implications are vast, with forecasts suggesting trouble for key infrastructure systems, including electricity generation and transportation networks. If no action is taken, integral to this assessment is a mapping tool that will identify and forecast flooding hazards affecting various suburbs across Australia, enhancing understanding of how climate change could influence local environments and livelihoods. Additionally, the report will be coupled with a national climate adaptation plan aimed at providing a comprehensive framework for navigating the realities of a shifting climate. Emissions reduction goals. The announcement everyone is waiting for is the government's 2035 emissions reduction target, which is anticipated by Thursday or Friday, following necessary cabinet approvals. This target, like the risk assessment, has faced delays. Originally slated for February, it was postponed following the federal election as the government sought guidance from the Climate Change Authority, which is overseen by former NSW Liberal Treasurer Matt Keane. But here's where it gets controversial. The government is not just expected to declare an ambitious emissions target, but to do so alongside a deluge of reports. These will include recommendations from the Climate Change Authority on how to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, and a strategic analysis for decreasing pollution across 6 critical sectors, ranging from energy and transport to agriculture and built environments. In tandem with the new goals, we can expect new policies aimed at substantially reducing greenhouse gas emissions, building upon the existing 2030 target of achieving a 43% cut from 2005 levels. Recent projections suggest Australia is on track for a reduction of around 42.6%, which unfortunately falls just shy of the legally mandated target. Importance of targets. Setting the 2035 emissions target carries weight not only within the domestic landscape, but also on the international stage. This target is pivotal for Australia's nationally determined contribution, which is a declaration of the nation's commitment to the global climate agenda established by the Paris Agreement. The Climate Change Minister, Chris Bowen, has indicated that rather than a singular figure, Australia may present a range of targets, a strategic move that invites varying interpretations. A vital stipulation of the Paris Agreement is that future targets must exceed current ones, demanding that Australia rises to meet this challenge with ambition. Recent guidance from the Climate Change Authority suggests aiming for a reduction of at least 65%, with higher cuts of up to 75% deemed ambitious yet achievable, provided that collective efforts are made across governmental, business, and domestic fronts. Since that guidance, there has been significant consultation with experts and stakeholders to fine-tune the recommendations. This deliberation is informed by what the best scientific perspectives suggest is necessary to mitigate climate change, including a commitment to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. Notably, Australia's Pacific Island neighbours are vocal in their expectation for Australia to push for ambitious goals, while also halting new fossil fuel projects. Some assessments, the kind generated by organizations like Climate Analytics and the Australian Conservation Foundation, provide detailed pathways for achieving at least a 75% reduction target. Notably, climate action advocates argue that only through aiming for this higher target does Australia establish credibility on the global stage. Nonetheless, there are dissenting views. For instance, experts such as Frank Giazzo of the Australian National University argue that a target in the mid-60s would still pose significant challenges, demanding a substantial reduction in pollution over the next 10 years. Moreover, he emphasizes that the effectiveness of the policy measures put in place to pursue any target set will likely be more impactful than the number itself. Diverse perspectives from the business community. The business sector's stance on these targets is notably diverse. A coalition of around 500 companies, including notable names like Fortescue and IKEA, has fervently advocated for a target of 75%. In contrast, some businesses express concerns over the associated costs, leaning toward a more moderate target in the 50% range. The Business Council of Australia even released a cautionary statement about setting a target in the 60s or 70s. Citing projections of substantial capital investments, estimated between $395 billion and $530 billion, necessary to meet a more ambitious climate goal. Global context of climate action. On the international front, responses to emissions reduction goals among developed countries reflect a patchwork of ambition. The United States, which accounts for approximately 10% of global emissions, has notably stepped back from proactive climate commitments. Conversely, the United Kingdom is targeting a dramatic 78% reduction by 2035, while the European Union is also aiming for substantial cuts in the 70% range. Comparatively, other industrialized nations like Canada and New Zealand have set their targets significantly lower, at 45 to 50% and 51 to 55% respectively. As a world-leading emitter, China has yet to propose targets comparable to those of earlier developed nations, although its pollution is projected to peak by 2030 amidst a rapid expansion of renewable energy and a deceleration in coal power usage, even as it continues to build new power plants. Significant attention is focused on what commitments China may bring to the upcoming COP30 climate conference in Brazil this November. In a recent interview, Bowen highlighted a 2021 report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which determined that global emissions would need to be cut by 60% from 2019 levels by 2035 to preserve the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. Given that this translates to a 68% decrease from 2005 levels, the baseline for Australia, there is increasing pressure for developed nations like Australia to exceed average global expectations and lead the charge in combating climate change. What do you think? Do you believe Australia should aim for a target at the higher end of the spectrum, or do you think practical considerations should temper ambition? I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments.